Hi everyone, thanks for watching and welcome to Past Physiology review of topic 2. We'll be talking about fascia in this video segment. In front of you is the study guide that I've posted to the Past Portal and Brightspace page. This is the first page, the top of the first page of the study guide. There is a table comparing the three major types of fascia. Below it, you will find a table comparing the three major types of cartilage. On the back page, you will find a table describing tendons and ligaments and comparing them to the basics of cartilage. Okay, so cartilage is kind of covered twice. We'll begin this video talking about fascia, okay, and breaking it down from superficial to deep. I've used a little bit of color. There's a lot of details in this that don't lend themselves maybe as much to memory aids. So compared to the first section, okay, the first topic, there's not as much memory hooks and things in here. If you kind of approach it as just looking at pictures and making a connection between the structure, of what the different type of fascia is and where it is, it kind of makes sense. Okay, so if you have any creative things to remember, you can share them and use them, but otherwise this is gonna be a pretty straightforward understanding type of approach. Okay, so I encourage you to also keep maybe a tab open looking up different anatomy that we talk about so you can see pictures of it. I can't show a picture of everything, but certainly pictures will be helpful. So first off, we're going to talk about superficial fascia. I just wrote soup to save some time here, save some space. Superficial fascia is right below your skin, okay? It attaches your skin to your body. And since, if you tug on your skin a little bit, you'll know that your skin can move on your body. So this is a flexible, movable attachment of skin to the rest of your body. So those details are just kind of no-brainers. It is a loose connective tissue because it's so flexible, okay? So pinch on your skin and move it around, and you'll remember that it's loose connective tissue. If you also pinch up a little bit of skin, you'll feel some fat under there, and if you don't, you're either really old or way too thin, okay? Because everybody should have some adipose tissue in their superficial fascia. That's kind of why I made this whole thing yellow too, this kind of creamy yellow, because this color of yellow kind of reminds me of the color of like fat when you cook a chicken or something. A little bit of pale yellow fat, okay? So it's super important that you know that adipose tissue is found in the superficial fascia. You should also know that it's made out of loose connective tissue. Pretty easy to know that because you can feel it on your skin, you can feel it move around. It connects the skin to the body, and it connects the skin to body in a way that it can move freely because your skin gets moved, okay? Your skin gets tugged and torqued on, and it needs to be able to, not tear the muscles and stuff below, okay? It also insulates. This layer insulates your body against heat and cold so that you can maintain the optimal body temperature in a cold or a hot environment. You can protect yourself in a hot environment with this insulation as well. Also, this adipose tissue in this superficial fascia layer pads your body, protects you a little bit against bumps and things like that. Insulation and padding will be lost, okay, with loss of the adipose tissue. And so over here we've got a little clinical note about elderly individuals and also malnourished people. But in almost all elderly people, they tend to lose this superficial adipose, and that means that they have real thin skin, and they can get bruised easily and cut easily, and they also are cold all the time. Even though it might be 80 degrees in the room, they still need to put a sweater on. They feel cold because they don't have this insulating layer of adipose tissue in the superficial fascia. There are other names for superficial fascia. You can call it the subcutaneous layer. You can call it hypodermis, beneath the dermis. And over here I've got the names of your skin just so this makes sense to you. The epidermis is the most superficial layer of your skin. And then if you scrape down into the pink stuff that's bleeding and stuff, if you cut it, that's dermis. And then below these two layers of skin is this superficial fascia, which you could also call hypodermis, beneath the dermis. Okay, so these two things are just the layers of your skin above the superficial fascia. Locations, where is it found? Everywhere underneath the skin. Okay, so next row is about deep fascia, and deep fascia is dense connective tissue. It's the only one. It's the only type of fascia that's a dense, real tough, strong connective tissue. It's formed in various sheets of different sizes. I put this picture in here to kind of give you an idea that your body has all this deep fascia everywhere, and it all kind of weaves and integrates in different ways in different parts of your body. It also can make these little different compartments throughout your body. So that's why this pattern, this generic pattern, can maybe reinforce this concept into your mind. I chose blue as the color just because deep fascia, blue, deep blue sea. Okay, so sometimes color might help you in that way. Otherwise, disregard the color if you don't like that. What does it do? Well, it's tough stuff. Okay, it's dense connective tissue, which is very tough. So it does tough stuff jobs. It provides tough support and tough protection throughout the body. It also compartmentalizes the body, which has the effect of limiting cancer and infection spread and things like that. It also helps channel interstitial fluid flow throughout the body. Tissue fluid, we talked about this in topic 1, just the free fluid in your tissue. And also having this interconnected, interwoven, the body's attached, throughout with this stuff. It also has the effect of transmitting force throughout the body in various ways that's still kind of not super well understood. This whole fascia concept, especially the deep fascia, is kind of interesting. And there's a book called Anatomy Trains that you may be interested in. The library has it, and you can look it up. But there's some interesting stuff, interesting current research into deep fascia and how important it is, and etc. So you might learn more about that later. So it interconnects the body and secures the body together as a whole. Okay, so you're not just muscles and bones and guts and skin and stuff. Okay, your skin is attached to your body securely by this superficial fascia, and then everything basically is kind of all held in place by networks of this deep fascia. Okay, and it is tough. So some other characteristics of deep fascia are that it is highly innervated, which means it's sensitive to pain, and it's also very low in vascular blood supply. Okay, so you got to know this. It's highly innervated, but poorly vascularized. Okay, it has some actions and capabilities. It can stretch and contract and shorten up. It can stiffen with sympathetic nervous system stimulation. Okay, so this is my little way of saying with, W/. Arrow going up means more, increased, and SNS in my notes is going to mean sympathetic nervous system. Okay, so fight or flight type of reactions. So it can toughen up and contract when you're stressed out. Okay, and you have that fight or flight response. And then it can also, if it can contract, hopefully it can relax too. And it can also remodel and change over time. So a couple little interesting things to think about that may or may not be true or connected, but they're just ways of at least helping you kind of think about this a little bit more, are that this stuff, this deep fascia, it might have a connection to the idea of chi meridians. I'm going to minimize this picture a little bit here so you can see a couple pictures I've saved off the internet. If you see on the right side of the screen, I've got a couple images, and the top is from the Anatomy Trains website. They're just pictures of a guy with some kind of lines. Okay, basically all these different lines on this guy are these continuous lines of different fascia that have been dissected out of cadavers, and these have certain actions and capabilities in the body of transmitting force. So these are connected pathways of based communication, technically, because when things stiffen way up here at the top of this green line, that is going to transmit force down all the way through wherever this thing ends up down here. Okay, so these are all different lines of fascia, continuous fascia in the body according to anatomy trains. And then down below here is a real simple meridian chart, which is part of or essential to chi meridians in acupuncture. Okay, so an acupuncturist would know, there's other ones too, I believe, but these are all different meridians in the body, which are supposedly different lines where chi energy flows throughout the body according to this ancient Chinese form of medicine, and their belief and their practice is that they see diseases and problems and things as a result of interruptions in chi flow through these different chi meridians. So they'll provide stimulation with needles or herbs or mechanical pressure at certain points on these chi meridians to help increase and regulate the flow of chi in the body. Not all that dissimilar from chiropractic, which is all about promoting proper nerve function and nerve flow and removing nervous system blockages in the form of subluxations. Okay, of course, along a little bit different pathways. So it's kind of interesting that there's a little bit of connection. They kind of look similar. They don't line up exactly, but especially in the lower extremity, like the lateral leg line, pretty much is the exact same line anatomically in a chi meridian compared to the lateral line in a anatomy train type of fascia line as well. So it's kind of interesting stuff. I encourage you to check it out. You might, new discoveries might come out in the future. But if nothing else, it helps you kind of think about what deep fascia is and realize that it is complex and it connects the body in different ways. And these are all lines that will transmit force, and problems on one end may lead to problems on the other end of these lines as well.
I'm Tom Myers. Welcome to Anatomy Trains. Anatomy Trains is a revolutionary new understanding of how the muscles connect through the fascial fabric of the body. In a way, it's similar to kinetic chains you might have heard about. It's also similar to the meridians in acupuncture. But Anatomy Trains is based wholly on Western anatomical understanding. It's a new, clear map of the direct force transmission through the fascial fabric of the body. Fascia is what used to be called sinews, the sheets and strings of connective tissue, the white gristly stuff that holds us together. It's the stuff that envelops the muscles and attaches them down onto the bones. And although the fascia permeates the whole body with a network through the organs, the brain, the lungs, and everywhere else, this Anatomy Trains map focuses on the direction of this fabric through the muscles. Force is transmitted from muscle to muscle via this fabric, and that creates the postural and movement limitations we see in our practice every day. The whole connective tissue matrix is one single net. All the divisions that you find in the books, and even the Anatomy Trains themselves that you're about to see here, they're all made with a knife from this single, indivisible whole net. Please remember that as we start looking at all these parts. The whole is real. Any division is conceptual. The fascia has a grain, just like fabric or wood, and we'll be tracing the grain of the fascia, which makes sense out of this bag of muscle tissue that we all live with. Muscle without fascia is just a hamburger. Muscle in our fascial net makes sensible movements. Unless, of course, it's too short, or too stuck, or too weak. Here's the news. Books tell us that the muscles just attach to bone, but the muscles also connect to other muscles through the fascia. Look, the rhomboids are being pulled under the scapula by the serratus anterior, as they do when you put somebody's arm behind their back. And this happens all over the body, as you'll see. It's this muscles attached to muscles idea that really leads to the new treatment strategies you'll learn in Anatomy Trains. Dissecting out these Anatomy Trains involves one simple change in approach. We turn the scalpel sideways. Instead of cutting out each muscle, we come to the attachment, we slide the scalpel sideways under the attachment and maintain the fascial connection from one muscle to the other. They've been there forever. It just took until the 21st century for us to see how muscles work as a system, the myofascial meridians. So, maintain a consistent fiber direction and maintain the fascia connection between the muscles, and voila, we have an Anatomy Train. You're about to benefit from seeing the connected, meaningful, functional units that surround and position the skeleton in the continual dance of life.
So the other note that I put in here, just something that I thought of, I guess, is you may have heard stories of people surviving a terrible accident in which you would think they would have been splatted on the concrete or whatever in a car wreck, or old ladies who perform feats of strength to save little grandbabies by lifting cars. And when people survive crazy um, you know accidents and stuff, maybe this is part of that. Um, maybe the fight or flight sympathetic nervous system stimulation, um, maybe that has something to do with contracting these different deep fascia connections and parts, and which stiffen and protect the body in emergency situations. Uh, you know, who knows? Maybe not. Maybe that's total BS, but it at least is a way to help you think about and sink this concept in to other parts of your brain. Okay? Anytime you can make connections with ideas and think about things deeper, or even just make connections to silly things, you are building synapses. You are building new pathways to get back to this information for a test and for the future reference. Okay? So it's just a thought experiment, if nothing else. Lastly, for deep fascia is where is it found? Well, everywhere, and then specifically our intermuscular septa, IM. These intermuscular septa are going to be in different muscle compartments in the body. These deep fascia compartments kind of group and bundle muscles together. A lot of times as functional units, like the posterior leg, their flexors back there in your soleus and gastrocnemius, which provide plantar flexion, etc. So these intermuscular septa are a thing, okay? And then you also have different fibrous capsules around lots of stuff throughout the body. I've listed them here. Your heart, kidney, bone, cartilage, muscles, blood vessels, your nerves, tendons, things like the dura around your brain. Those are all these different body parts have tough protection layers around them. And you can go through this list and read them if you want. But I have perio, so periosteum and endosteum, perichondrium, epiperi and endomysium, the tunica externa of a vessel. The nerves have layers too of a epiperi and endoneurium, and then tendons have an epitendinium. So the name, the way to name these different things is pretty straightforward. Peri means around. Chondrium, that just means cartilage, okay? Endo means inside. Peri means around, and epi is, I guess even more peripherally around. So you'll learn these different layers in gross anatomy if you haven't already, and that might help you recall that here. But it's basically just tough attachments, tough capsules, tough connections, tough septa, etc. Don't forget about the concept of innervation and sensation of pain, and then also the ability to contract with sympathetic stimulation. Lastly on this table is visceral fascia. It's pretty straightforward because the name kind of tells you where it is, and it's around the viscera like your guts and stuff, okay? So it is another loose connective tissue. What does it do? It basically makes, this is my words, it makes kind of a slip and slide between the deep fascia and your internal cavity serous membrane around your organs. So what this does is it makes a slip and slide so that your muscles and stuff and your body can move around and go wild, but just kind of slip and slide over your organs. And also, your organs can move because your organs are moving. Your guts are pumping food through, turning it into poop, okay? And your heart's beating, and your lungs are constantly expanding and then shrinking, okay? Breathing in, breathing out. So you got to have movement capability inside, and that's what visceral fascia does. It also, therefore, will support and protect those internal organs while allowing them to move. So the story is kind of similar between the superficial and deepest visceral fascia. It's just the location that differs in a way. You can also call the visceral fascia the subserous layer because it's between the deep fascia and the serous membranes, okay? So it's connected to the serous membrane, subserous. It is in your internal cavities. like your peritoneum. Okay, so that is everything for this first table, and we will visit cartilage next.
So we're starting with, at the bottom, the plantar fascia, where it would connect. We've taken it about as far as the metatarsals. It would go onto the toes with the flexors, but here is the plantar fascia. Here is where the calcaneus would be. So you can see that there is a complete fascial connection around the calcaneus, and onto the Achilles tendon, spreading out with the soleus, the gastrocnemius. Here we have a divided interconnection in a way, in that the gastrocnemius reaches around the hamstring tendons to attach outside, but at the same time there is a strong fascial connection right through from one to the other. That was kind of a surprise because we expected them to be independent like this, but they're actually connected. So here's the division among the medial and lateral hamstrings. They blend here into the sacrotuberous ligament here, which has been taken intact off the ischial tuberosity and the edge of the sacrum. This is the sacral fascia taken intact into the erector spinae, big thick group of muscles there filling in the lumbars up along the thoracics. And here we have the splenius capitis included in this, and the semispinalis capitis included on the top of the actual erector spinae coming up. But all of these together would form a continuity that comes into the nuchal line and continues along the scalp fascia to the brow ridge here, just above the eye. So from the bottom of the toes to just above the eye, one long fascial continuity.